Welcome to the Joy Work Show, the podcast that goes beyond the surface of business, right to the heart, to explore the real joy and the stories behind success. Not just the moments of celebration, but the challenges that pave the way for them. Hiya, I'm Diane, and here we know that joy isn't just about the good times. Often, the greatest joy comes right after the greatest challenge. In today's episode, the guest episodes are back. And today I'm joined by Hayley Baxter, who swapped her corporate accountancy career for building an off-grid accounting practice. We talk about her journey of self-discovery, the role accountants really play in supporting small businesses, and why I think they might just hold the magic, and the way media influences how people see the profession, the world around us. Hayley also shares her thoughts on creating a joyful legacy in business and why, even in an increasingly automated world, the human touch matters more than ever. But as always, it's so much better to hear directly from the guests themselves. So let's go. Hi, Hayley, and welcome to the Joy Work Show. I'm so delighted to have you here with me today. And I'm a little bit excited today because I really enjoy when I get to know somebody for the first time, apart from the odd scroll through your socials, for the first time having a real life online conversation with somebody brand new, and you are brand new to me. So, without further ado, and as it's always better in the guest's words, who are you, what do you do, and how did you get here?
Well, thank you very much, Diane, for having me on. I'm really excited to be here. So, where do I begin? So, I'm Hayley Baxter, as you can see on the screen. I am also known as the off-grid accountant, which I'll come to that bit a little bit later. My business is Cobra Accounting, and we are an accountancy practice. We're based in Derbyshire. And ultimately, we love to work with businesses and business owners to help them. Ultimately, I always say, it sounds a bit dramatic, but live the life that they dream of. That's what we love to do. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. In terms of how I ended up here, when I suppose I'll probably start when I left school. I'll start at that point, I think. I was quite academically clever at school, and I enjoyed maths. So everybody always says accounting is the way to go. Although I don't really do much maths. I think that's a myth and that accountants need to be good at maths. But anyway, so I didn't want to go to I'd had enough of education, being truthful. So I really wanted to get a job. All as I'd ever wanted to do. I can remember being a child, and like when you play like make believe games or make up games, I used to always play running a business, and there'd be all different types of businesses that I would pretend to run. But that's what I always did. And I think I just always wanted to work and earn money and just be in this kind of world of business. I don't know where it came from. My family's not like that, but I think for whatever reason, I've always been like that. So I was desperate to get a job. I happened to go down to the local careers office, which I don't even know if they exist anymore, where they had like those boards with the little cards on. It's probably showing my age a little bit. That
I've got no idea if they do either. I actually have no. I know there's like job centres, but maybe that's more to do with benefits and stuff now than it is actually getting a job. I have no idea.
Me neither. But that's what I did. And it just so happened that there was an advertisement there for a job as an accounts assistant in a travel agent. So that was how I started my career. I worked in what we call industry, so basically in-house finance, for about 20 years. Started in a travel agent, so I worked in a recruitment business, an IT company, and then finally I ended up working as part of a large contract catering business. A UK-wide business was, 400 million revenue, so it was a big corporate company. I was part of their in-house finance team. Throughout all those years, I qualified and did all my accounting qualifications, lots of different job roles. And ultimately, I got to the point where I was in a role, I was what we call head of FP&A. So I was managing a team of qualified accountants. I'd kind of got to a point where I just became a bit disillusioned with the corporate world, which is not an unfamiliar story.
No, not
I don't think.
Not at all.
Yeah, so, all of the typical things that went with that, a bit disillusioned. I was probably working too many hours. I was traveling a lot. I was quite stressed, in truth. And I think I just got to the point where I was just like, what? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm not enjoying it. And I don't, I'm not happy outside of work either because it's affecting me. So I basically left without a plan. I just handed my notice in, and I'm very lucky that I was in a position to be able to do that. I don't have children. It's me and my husband. So he had a job. We had, a pot of savings. So ultimately I had sort of, if you call it a luxury, where I could just leave and then take some time to decide what I wanted to do. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I didn't want to be in that environment anymore. And I was quite sure I didn't just want to go and get another job in a different company, because I personally felt that would just result in the same thing. So I had a bit of time off, and as life goes, people know that I'm an accountant. So I got people asking, down at the pub, oh, could you help such and such buddy with their bookkeeping? Could you help me with my tax return? And so as I wasn't doing anything, I decided to do that. And then what happened was I realized that without all of that corporate stuff, let's say, I actually really enjoyed doing the accounts and the bookkeeping. But what I really enjoyed doing was actually helping real people, real business owners, really get to grips with their finances and get it organized for them, and take that kind of worry and anxiety that so often comes with finance and numbers for people away from them, and actually feel like I'm really making a difference to real people that are, that have stepped out of I don't like using the word normal, but that kind of conventional way of living and doing life. They've gone out on their own. They've taken that plunge into running a business, which, let's face it, is hard. And so that was where it started. And then I decided from there to take the full plunge, go full time into starting a practice. And that was about 5.5 years ago now. So
Wow.
So we're here today.
So you're here today. And
Yes.
it is so interesting, because I think it's that thing, like, I love the fact that it started from that you knew you wanted to go into business. And I think what's so lovely is, if I could tell teenagers now, because I didn't, like, I went the full education, went to university, and I now do nothing to do with the degree that I did. And I think I did it all because I think that was what was expected. And before me, there wasn't a lot of people in our family to go to university. My sister, my eldest sister, was actually the first in our whole extended family to go to university. So I think I was like, I've been given this opportunity, so I need to take it. But ultimately, I didn't know. And I just would say to teenagers at that point now, of make a decision of what you want. So I think it's really brave that you did that at that age, and didn't just because you were academically gifted or you did well academically, you were good with numbers, that would automatically people be like, oh, you'd be wasting it if you don't go to uni, make the most of your gifts or what you're good at. But ultimately you were like, no, I know that I want to go and work. That's what I want to do, and that's where I will thrive. And you did, even though you've now moved on from it, but you did in that space. And if I could say to teenagers now, decide if you want to go to university, absolutely. And obviously there's lots of things you need to go to university for to qualify for. But if you don't really know, then go out into the world and find out, because you're going to find out a lot more out there than you will at university, in my eyes, as somebody who had the whole university experience, but not necessarily that whole life experience, and what I then enjoyed when I get into the workplace.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, because I know if I'd have gone to university, I would have probably had a whale of a time, but I would have just ended up with not a lot out of it, because I wasn't interested. I wasn't interested in doing it. So I would have probably done the bare minimum to get by, even though, and some of that comes with, because I could, because I can pick things up quickly and things like
Because
that.
you could, because you knew that from
I
an
could coast.
intelligence point of view, you could do what they were asking you to do.
Absolutely. And I would have just then ended up, finishing university with, whatever I would come out with, but then I still wouldn't have known what I wanted to do. I still wouldn't have been serving that itch of actually just wanting to get out into the world and make money, and, just be part of, just feeling like I'm doing something. And it's really ironic because I love learning and I really enjoy, like today, I'm always, like, obviously being an accountant, you have to keep up to date with
Yeah,
tax
absolutely.
changes and all sorts of things that are going on. And obviously AI is the new kind of thing that you've got to kind of keep up with or you get left behind and all of that. And I love it in that way, but it's really nice to be able to do it in a way about things that I'm interested in, and that I enjoy doing it. Whereas, at university, I would have just been doing something that I wasn't interested in, is the truth of it. And also, I think accounting particularly, and this is not a disrespect to anybody, any accountants that go to university and do that route, but I actually think the practical route of accounting, if you want to be an accountant, is a really good route to take, because you get, a lot of, there is the technical bit you need to know in accounting. Absolutely there is. But there's also a lot of practical stuff that you just don't get taught in,
Hmm.
the academic world. And so actually it's one of the, I think one of the great professions where you can work and have gain that work experience whilst you're gaining your qualification.
Absolutely.
And it really marries really well together. So I 100%, I'm not a big fan of the academic world.
No, and I completely agree with you. And here's why I agree with you. Somebody who has had her own business for 2 years nearly now, and then previous to that, I was in the private sector. It wasn't that corporate; it was direct sales, private sector in the UK. We had a lot of self-employed people. We had a lot of employed people. So there was always lots of different conversations. People needing accountants and tax and learning these things as a self-employed person. And I think accountants hold, like, a good accountant is a little bit like a magician for a business in that they can take the complicated away from you and do it. So there's that bit, but there's also the knowledge of the things, and it's not about somebody doing naughty things that they shouldn't be doing, but it's about making your tax efficient, optimizing your accounts, knowing about your profit, knowing how to, if you, as a self-employed person, if you have a limited company, knowing how to pay yourself, knowing how all those things work for the benefit of being a business owner. And I think there is too many accountants out there. And as I say, this is me being sweeping and not about all accountants, but there's too many accountants out there who will do it like they're taught by the book
Yeah.
and taught by the education. And that means that business owners, particularly small business owners, will feel scared of them and shamed by them. And, they'll be too scared to ask the questions of, like, well, can I claim this for my business? Or is my tax efficient? Or whereas they just feel that they're being made to be stupid, but everything's done so by the book, there's no benefits for them as a small business owner, when actually when your accounts are done properly, there's tons of benefits within the rule book, within the rules, doing it all right. And that's when an accountant can be that little bit of magic in a business that you didn't know that you needed. And when I work with my clients and they start talking about, if I work with somebody and they're doing everything themselves and they start talking to me about outsourcing, and they'll say, I'd really love somebody to do my social media. I'd really love somebody to do my content. I really want a virtual assistant. I'm like, have you got an accountant or a bookkeeper or somebody that takes care of that? No, that's the place you go first.
Yeah. And what you've just said is, it's really interesting. And you have just absolutely hit the nail on the head about part of the reason why I started my business. And the way that I would describe everything that you kind of encompass there, it's kind of like the commerciality of business. So accountants in practice don't often, that they're there to process the numbers, crunch the numbers at the end of the year, produce the accounts, tell you what your tax bill is, and that's about it. If you need specific advice and you ask them something, I'm sure they would give it to you, but they're not very proactive in
Hmm.
curating that environment. And again, I'm not saying every single accountant.
No.
I'm kind of saying there is definitely a bucket of accountants that operate in that way. It's probably very traditional, a bit old school is how I would describe it. And that is exactly like you've just said. It's not actually really very helpful to small business owners. And that's exactly what we try to do at Corba. So I talk about, we're not just the year-end accountant. We're there throughout the year. We're on your business journey with you. There are touch points. We have conversations. And that might be, a Zoom chat, 15-minute Zoom chat with a cup of coffee, just talking about how things are going in your life and your business. it might not be a formal, what's going on in your numbers today, but
Yeah.
it's just that kind of feeling like you've got that business partner to help you along your way from a financial point of view.
Mhm.
And I really do feel that it's sadly, and I do think it's sad that it's missing in so many accountants.
Mhm.
And I think that's where having the background of working as part of like big in-house finance teams, well, that's how, an in-house finance team is not there to do the year-end accounts or the tax bill. An in-house finance team is there to help the board navigate the business financially, to project forward, to understand what's going on, to help them, to provide them with the information so that they can make the decisions about the way to navigate the business ultimately. And that's the bit that small business owners really need. They don't always know that they need it. They might not need it in quite the formal way, but that's the bit that is really missing. And it's sad because all those accountants can offer so much help and support, like exactly like you said, it's like having a magician.
Mhm.
So it's something I feel very passionate about, and I really hope, and I can see the industry changing. I do think it is
Well, I can as
changing.
well. Even as an outsider, I can see
Yeah,
that the industry changing. It's
but there's
taking its
still too
time, but
many.
it is
Yeah,
changing.
there's still too many in that bucket.
Yeah.
Oh, and I also feel a little bit like, when those accountants are probably the ones that, come 5-10 years time are going to get left behind, because that, is compliance work. We can see the way, whilst nobody knows, we don't have a crystal ball, but it's kind of written on a page, the way the world's going, and anything that, can be done via looking up tax rules and building a P&L.
Putting a number in a box.
It's the human bit, and that looking forward bit, and that support around just having somebody to have a conversation with that's got that financial angle in their head. You wouldn't get any big business without a finance director or a CFO.
No, absolutely not. And do you know what's really interesting about what you said? It's about, and I've had a few conversations with people who deal with what is deemed as scary things within business, whether it's from accountants through to like a legal team, through to even things like SEO on
Mm-hmm.
things where things are seen as expert, and like your normal everyday, I've built a business out of what I'm good at and passion person wouldn't be an expert in all these things. And every single one of the experts of those things that I speak to, every single one of you say, but we're with them all of the way. We break it down, we build that relationship. And I think we see too often when those tax times come up, the times of the year. I mean, I don't even know
Mm.
when the times of the year are. That's, it's get taken care of for me. But
Mm.
those times of the year, and you see too many people on social media going, oh, it's my tax return, and oh, I've got to do it today, and oh, my accountant's going to kill me, and oh, I've got to find these receipts, and I don't know where anything is, and I don't know. Whereas, like you say, if it's proactive and it's that relationship, you can tell the business owners who are dealing with accountants or doing it themselves that are then up to high dough for this 7 days that they've left it to do their tax return, or, the corporation tax or whatever it may be, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the business owners that don't even mention it. But they've got they're not mentioning it because they're not doing it, because they've got a thriving business. You can see all the levels of success, but they have a relationship with
Yeah.
somebody, whether it's in-house, whether it's an accountant's firm that takes care of it, whether it's one person, but they have somebody who is being proactive and taking care of their tax all the way through the year, so that it's not, and also,
Fixing.
like you say, the accountants aren't just there to do the tax. It's about your profit. It's about how you're handling your business. It's how you're paying yourself and your staff and all of these things that you are the expert in. But as a business owner, you don't need to be. You just need to have somebody on your team
Yeah,
that is.
that is exactly it. And I think like the tax bit is like, that's the tick box bit that like you just have to do that. And it's interesting, I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about social media and posts and different things, and I was saying that something that really irritates me is, when like people put, oh, I've saved my client this much tax, and I'm like, you haven't. You've done your job.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do. And if they've been to a different accountant and they've come to you and you've saved them that tax, the other accountants have not done their job. It's like, it's not you. Like, that's the minimum
Yeah.
To me anyway, that's what I think. That's the minimum standard. It's everything else that comes with it.
Mhm.
Absolutely it is.
Okay. No, it is. It's so interesting, but I want to move on. I want to know why you are called the off-grid accountant.
Okay, yes, yes. So the off-grid accountant. So this comes, I suppose, the way you would sum it up is this is kind of like my personal brand. So
Okay.
I live on a farm in Derbyshire, and my farm is off-grid.
Lovely.
So by that I
Wow.
mean we don't have any connection to utilities. So we've got our own wind turbine and solar panels for our electricity and power generation. We've got a well for our water. And we do have a diesel generator set, because if we have days where there's no wind and there's no sun, we would, once the batteries have depleted, we would run out of electricity. So that's where the off-grid bit comes from. And it's, I'll be completely truthful. I use it because it helps people remember me. It's a different
Absolutely.
story in a sea of, hundreds of accountants. And at the moment, the business is run from officers based on the farm. So we are ultimately an off-grid accountancy practice.
It's amazing. So how did that start? How did you? Because nobody just like thinks, "Oh, this is a great idea. I'll buy this place with all," and you don't buy these places anymore with all that stuff on. So how did that story begin?
Well, we sort of did. So it started in lockdown. Well, it actually started before lockdown. So we grew up in a town. I say we, it's me and my husband I'm talking about. We grew up in a town and we moved more rurally, more into the countryside. At a particular point in time. And it was beautiful. We had beautiful views and everything, but we were on a main road, and it was a main route to a motorway. So we got really big trucks in the middle of the night coming down the road. It was on a bend. So all as you could hear is either the screech of brakes or acceleration. We went on holiday. Sorry, this is probably a bit long-winded, but we went on holiday, and we were in a caravan in Cornwall, and we were like, oh my God, it's so quiet, it's so peaceful, it's so relaxing. And we were like, you know what, this is what we wanted our kind of countryside life to be like. And it just wasn't, because of this bustling road. Then lockdown happened, and as probably many people did in lockdown, our fun Friday night was sat at the kitchen table scrolling through Rightmove to just look at, all different sorts of properties. And it just so happened that we wrote a list of all the things we wanted out of a property, because we'd kind of been through that journey. We were very particular about what we wanted and where we wanted the location to be and all of that. So we wrote this big long list, and it just so happened we found a house that met all of those criteria, and it just happened to have a wind turbine and not be off grid in its location. So, and my husband, as irony would have it, has always worked in power generation.
Okay.
So his background is working on diesel generator sets. So I was like, oh my gosh, there's this house. It's got this wind turbine. It's got its own engine room. Like, there can't be a more perfect house for you to live in. So that was what we did. We went, we came to see it. As buying houses are, it was a big, long, drawn out process. But yeah, so we moved in at the end of 2021. We didn't have solar panels at that point, and we only had coal-fired heating. So it was literally, we had to put the coal on the fire to have hot
Yeah.
water, to heat the house up. And I don't know if you know Derbyshire and Buxton, but we're on a hill. It's often
Very
raining. It
windy,
gets
cold.
snowed
Yeah.
so it was a challenging winter, let's say, that first winter. We've since upgraded to an oil-fired Rayburn, which is, that's made a difference, because going out to the coal shed at 6 o'clock in the morning in your dressing gown and wellies is not fun when
It's
it's
a bit
snowing.
too much character
Yeah.
building. Like there's one winter where you can look back fondly now with rose
hmm
tinted glasses and think, remember that when we first moved into that house. But if you were constantly doing that, it is a bit too much character building, I think, too,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
everyday life.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. So yeah, so we've done that. We added the solar panels and things like that, just to help give us a more all-rounded energy base, because we do get days that are not windy, and
Yeah.
we would just run out of electricity. So it's very rare now that our diesel generator comes on, because we've, kind of got lots of solar panels, and we've
I don't
obviously
think
still
I've
got
ever
the wind
spoke to
turbine.
somebody. So my background is actually certainly the last 14 years of my career was solar panels. It was the
Is it?
energy industry and the direct sales industry in the UK.
Wow.
Um, so yes, I know quite a bit about solar panels and things. but I haven't spoke to anybody who was completely off grid and living seemingly a normal existence that anybody would think about. So I think when people think about off grid, they think there's always going to be the challenges. Perhaps they're going out for the coal and, perhaps
Yeah.
a completely different way of living, but you're running a business and you're
Absolutely. Yeah, we do. And it's interesting because I think people do have this vision of what it might be like. But if you actually came to the house, other than it being quite remote on top of a hill on its own, everything works how it would in a normal house. The light switches just switch on, the water
the
runs out of the
lights
tap.
come on,
It's just
you have
completely
internet,
normal.
you're speaking to me.
Yeah, and that's it. The internet thing is because that's always people always ask me about the internet. So the internet is a 4G SIM card like you have in your phone.
Yeah,
So it's not, it's not a conventional one, but it
like a fiber
works.
optic cable and
It works. It occasionally can, we have moments where it goes a little bit funny, typically when we've got high winds, but, we've done it now for, well, what would it be? Nearly 4 years it's coming up to that we've had this set up. And, on a busy day, there's 5 or 6 of us all here working off at this internet connection. So it's, yeah.
it just shows you, it does just show you that, because look, I have fibre optic. I'm not that far outside the city. I'm in a very green space, but I'm not that far outside the city, so I've got full kind of fibre optic. Mine still goes.
Yeah.
I still have
Yeah.
days where I can't get on, whether it's high, like you say, quite often high winds, stormy weather we've had over the last 24 hours and so. So yeah, so you just goes to show, because you do think there would be. So I guess, so you don't feel any limitation to being off grid. You don't. There's no.
No, no, not really. No, we did. So we had an issue for it was the first summer after we moved in. So 2022. It was a very dry year,
Okay.
and we our well. So the water. There's a hill, the water filters through the hill and it collects via a spring, and we have like a collection point for it, which we call a well. It's not technically a well, but that's what we call it. And there was I don't think it was quite, I think there was some blockages, and it did get to the point where we were like, we've only got 3 days of water left. What do we
Wow.
do?
Okay.
So that was a limitation at that point. What we actually did at that time was we just bought 10,000 litres of water and backfilled the well. And then my husband, who is amazing at all this sort of stuff, did things to clear the blockages, and we've never had that problem, touch wood,
See, that's
since.
the secret, having somebody, because I think if me and my partner were to do that, like, we can't really even put up a shelf. So if we were
Yeah,
to try and go off grid, it could get interesting. We definitely need somebody it's that expert thing again,
it
having
is.
somebody on hand.
Definitely is. And I think it's more like not necessarily so much with the water, but the solar panels and the wind turbines and things like that. Like now it's there's much more of it in the UK than there perhaps
Yes.
was 5, 10, 15 years ago. So I think getting that expert would be an easier, again, because like you say, people have things ancillary, so they still have a grid connection, so they've got the backup, and it's more conventional. So an electrician or
Yes.
whomever would understand how it all works, but because this is completely self-sufficient, it is a little bit different.
Even when I was in the industry and we were putting solar panels generally on domestic properties, that was the kind of core business. And obviously that was as reducing your electricity bills. At one point there was a great money-making thing as well when it was the high feed-in tariff and things. So it was all to do with that. And that's why lots of people in the UK would still put solar panels on the roof from
Yeah.
a domestic point of view, to save on their electricity bills, to become more self-sufficient, but you're still connected to the grid, so it's still completely different. And when we did do properties where it was off the grid, it was a completely different way of doing it, different connections, different way it generates, everything was just different about it. So it's just so interesting to hear somebody who has lived that life and not. So do you do anything else? Are you like the good life? Do you like grow vegetables and things like that, or is it literally just the off-grid part?
It's just the off-grid part. Yeah.
Okay.
I actually declared a few days ago that I was not doing any gardening ever again, even in house plants, because I'm not green fingered. I don't enjoy it. So I've actually decided I'm not going to. I think I'm at that age in life where I'm just like, you know what? If I don't enjoy doing something, why do I keep trying to make myself be this
Exactly.
person?
Exactly. But I think if you told somebody, and you must have such interesting conversations when you say to people off-grid accounting thing, because they must ask like, all right, so do you go to a supermarket or do you just like
Yeah.
live off the land type thing?
Yeah, yeah, no, it is. Whilst we are rural, we are literally only a mile outside of the town, so
Perfect.
we can get a supermarket delivery to our door and things like that. So it's very, it's a very normal. I can't think when we had the coal fire that did have limitations, and that was difficult because there'd be days when we'd be like, well. And some of the things within the house weren't quite done correctly. So we could only put heat to one part of the house and not the other. So we kind of had to decide, did we want to have this room heated or did we want to have hot water? So it was a bit like that at the beginning, but like that's all gone with.
That's just old buildings as well. That's just,
Yes.
to say, I'm in a house not far from a city. Like we are suburbs, I guess. Just, we're a couple of miles outside a big city. We're in like a over 100-year-old house. And things
Yes.
go wrong in this house all of the time. And the other day, a light switch just stopped working for the lights, and it's one of these rooms that you press one light and that comes on, and that. So, it's just
Yeah,
it's old buildings, isn't it? It's just
it
those
is.
things can go wrong no matter what. But it's character.
It is. It
I
is.
like the character of the old buildings.
Yeah, and it is. And I mean, this is an amazing house. Um, and it's kind of, so it's an old farmhouse and then it's had like bits built onto it, or
Mhm.
conversions built, so it is amazing. Yeah, we're very lucky in lots of ways.
But it sounds like, do you know what it sounds like to me though? Because at the start, I'm going to go back to at the start, you said when you quit your corporate job, you said that you were lucky because you had
Hmm.
your husband and you had savings and it was just the two of you. That's not luck. That's, you've created that. Like, you and your husband have created that, and now you've created that life. So absolutely be grateful because you're so happy to be in it. But
Mm.
that's you. And what it sounds like you do, and what I'm really hearing in your story and I'm really enjoying, is that you kind of know yourself
Mm.
and you go after the things that you know yourself you want. And I think it can take people a whole lifetime to get to know themselves and also be brave enough to admit it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think and some of that, I think I don't know if, again, I'm probably going to say, look, I don't know if like that's just the way I am.
Hmm.
Certainly when I think back to when, being younger and different things like that, I think some of that is just luck. But then I also think that some of it is, I have spent, not, well, I still do, but I have spent time actually really thinking about, well, what, you're only here for one go round or whatever it's called, however
Yeah.
you want to word it.
Yeah.
And I don't, and there's so many things that you can do. And I am a believer that, you can one of my favorite sayings is, what one man can do, so can another. And I just think that, you don't have to do what everyone else does. You can do it your own way, whatever that looks like.
Uh-huh.
And I think, again, I'm going to use the word lucky. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I think I'm lucky that I discovered that or got on board with that mentality quite young and from quite a
Hmm.
quick age. And I also think, like, my husband, he's like very, he'll say, oh, I think we should do this idea. And I'm just like, oh yeah, let's do it. Like, I'm very much like, I'm not like, oh no, well, we can't do that. Oh no, what about that? Like, I'm quite on board. Like, if he'd have just said, right, let's go and move to Alaska for a year, I would have just been like, yeah, okay, let's go. See where it takes us. So I think I'm quite open to things in that way as well.
Yeah.
And I think being like that, you also soon realize what you do and don't like.
Hmm.
So I think I'm just lucky.
You're lucky in
Still going with that.
having a partnership and finding somebody that, because I find that with my partner, but quite often it's me. If he comes to me, I'll give him 20 million reasons why we can't do it, because I give everything a beginning and a middle and an end.
Hmm.
But when I come up with something, and everything that I've kind of done since we've known each other and been like, okay, well, should we do it? And then should we do this? And what do you think about this? And he literally, I could turn up at the door with a shark and he'd be like, well, I guess I'm building a tank then.
Yeah.
When people say, oh, I need to ask my partner, or I need to do this, I need to do that. And of course, I discuss with them because we are
Mm.
partners in
Yeah.
life and we make decisions as a team. But there's not anything he's told me not to do, which has sometimes been an issue. And sometimes I do, I'm like, well, right, calm
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Let's just sit and think about this. But I think it's just really important to have that person who believes,
Yeah,
in you and backs you to that level. And that is a lucky thing. That is
yeah,
a lucky.
yeah,
I'll
I'd
let I'll
agree.
let you say lucky for that. That is a lucky thing.
I think it's interesting because also I'm very like, the other thing is, and maybe some of this is like failing fast or learning fast. I don't know which way round you'd say it, but like, I'm very much like, if people talk about doing things, I'm like, no, well, let's do it. When are we going to do it? Let's go and do it now. Like, I don't, and it's funny. I always speak, my sister-in-law, she's like, well, do you not want to should we not just think about it? I'm like, no, because my sister-in-law works in the business with me. And she's like, well, do you not think we should just think about it? Or do you want to sleep? I'm like, no, let's just do it. We'll just do it now. We'll sign up or
Because
whatever
if
it
you
is.
think
And we'll
about it,
just
you
get on
won't do
with it.
it.
Yeah,
You'll just
that's
give yourself
exactly it.
100 reasons not to.
Yeah. So I think I'm also quite like that. And again, by being that way, actually, if you then decide actually it wasn't quite the right thing to do, you soon know that. And it's not
Mhm.
still taking up space in your head because
Yeah.
you've kind of
But
done
you
it and
can
got on with
fix
it.
it. There's
Yeah.
not many things that can't be fixed once you've made a
No.
decision, but there's lots of things that can't be done if you don't do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's that thing of like, and I think my dad always used to say to me, ask for forgiveness, not for permission. So
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of lived quite a bit like that. I've had to ask for forgiveness quite a lot though.
Yeah.
So
That's part of the fun though, isn't it?
exactly, exactly. But as long as you can say sorry, and as long as you can hold yourself accountable, then that's
Yeah.
all that matters. That's absolutely. But I love hearing your story and that kind of get up and go that you seem to have. And I think I think most taken away from this is how well you know yourself, because I didn't know myself when I was younger. I think I'm still getting to know myself now, and we joke
Mm.
that I've had many lives, and I think I've known myself in different but I just think it's really impressive how well you've known yourself, and to follow from the little half an hour conversation that we have just
Yeah.
had.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
So
interesting.
as you know, I ask everybody 3 joy questions about joy in their life. So the first one I'll start with is your joy spotlight, a favourite thing that has shaped your life, business, or work.
So my answer to this is dancing. I'll expand a little bit. So from being 3 years old, I've always gone to dance class. So I did ballet, tap, modern, acrobatics while I was growing up. I still go to dance class now as an adult, every Tuesday night. And I would say that that's probably the one thing that's massively shaped my life in so many ways, just from, you learn to be part of a team, you make friends for life, you make different friends than school friends. It's different friends than your work friends, you're in a different environment. Just like having to, doing a show or an exam, getting all of your stuff ready, even as, growing up as a teenager and, once you got to your point where your parents don't do that for you, um, being, I suppose being responsible for making sure that you've got everything that you need, that you've got the right outfit, you've got the right shoes, you've got your hair done, you've been there on time. There's so many life skills that I think you learn from that process, the commitment side of it, that you're not, you can't just, if you're doing a troop number as part of a competition, you can't just turn up once a month. You've got to be there
Yeah.
every single week. You've got to give it your all. There's so many things that I think in life it's shaped for me. And I'm hugely grateful to having it, because I think a lot of children start to do something like that. And then, especially nowadays, compared to when I was younger, but I think there's so much for children to do. And I think, they chop and change their minds, which, they're children, of course they do. But I think I'm so glad that somehow I managed to stick with it all the
Mhm.
way through, because I do think it's made a massive difference. And even in things like now as an adult, obviously I don't compete or take part in things as much as I used to. Even going for that sort of 2-hour class on a Tuesday, there's not often a lot of time when your mind totally switches off,
No. Yeah.
work or life or anything, but you go to that class, you're learning a dance. You can't learn the dance and be practicing whatever you're doing in that
Mhm.
class and be thinking about other things. So it's like a total mind break as well.
It's like a total immersion in that and
Yeah.
nothing else.
Yeah. And it's been so good through, and that some of these things I've only realized obviously as I've got older, but actually when I think about it, it's been such a good thing, throughout all my life and throughout everything that's happened. Life happens to everybody, doesn't it? And I think having that like thing that you can always go back to, or you always, you know, you just every Tuesday, that's what we do. We go to dancing, and whatever's going on in life, that's what you do. And I think that's like a really nice thing to have had.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a shame sometimes that I think a lot of people don't have that in life. So I'm
No, I know it's
very
so
lucky.
interesting. Exactly, lucky, but it's but you used the word grateful that you had it, but you will have committed to that and you will have followed through with that. So I've got
Yeah.
two wee ones. I've got a 4-year-old and a 2.5, nearly 3-year-old, and they went to baby ballet. And then we had to stop that for a while. But now I'm at the point that I'm looking at what they can be doing and other things, because my eldest is starting school in September. But it was really interesting that you said having separate friends to school. And I wanted to have that because school's not necessarily always a wonderful place for everybody. And whilst I actually think my eldest is going to go and thrive at school, to be perfectly honest. I think
Yeah.
it's just going to be, certainly primary school, I think it's just going to be right up her street. But I want her to have other interests, and I want her, and all the things that you said, like that discipline, that commitment, that things. And I remember people saying to me, "Are you really that bothered at this age?" And I'm like, but these are when the habits are formed. These are when these things are formed. And I was hopeless when I was young, and it's nothing to do with my parents. I literally wouldn't stay at clubs. I was just that child that just wouldn't stay. And I don't want my children to do that, because there's lots of parts of my personality that I'm like, I don't want them to have that, because I've known the limitations that's brought for me.
Yeah.
So it's really lovely to hear somebody's story where it's been a constant in their life and such a positive, when you're looking at your children and think these are the reasons why I want you to do it as an adult, because I now
Yeah.
know. But to hear an adult who's done it, and so many of the mums, including my friends who were dancers when they were younger and then they gave it up and now they're like, I wish I hadn't.
Yeah.
And you see mums going back to tap and going back. In fact, there was somebody the other day I was watching going back to
Yeah.
ballet as a 40-year-old. And I'm like, that is so amazing too. But what a shame that at some point in your life you thought you had to
Yeah.
stop
Yeah.
for
Absolutely.
whatever reason it was. And it's also that body thing as well, because I just want my girls to see their body as a tool and useful and powerful, and not a thing to be necessarily gazed upon or thought anything of apart from, look at how my leg moves,
Yeah.
or look at how I can do this, or look
Yeah.
at how I can do that, not necessarily, oh, look what my thigh looks like compared to the girl next to me. So yeah, so I think I really want, and I know dance will also have the other issues, but I think it's also changing
Yes.
because
Yeah.
there's modern and acro and everything else, and it's about strength and flexibility. And so it's so lovely to hear. And I literally just contacted one of the local dance schools on Monday and they came back to me yesterday. So this conversation has been very serendipitous to make me think, no, I definitely want them to go down that road. And not because I want them to be a pretty dancer, but because I want them to have movement and all the other things that you said, and being part of something that is
Yeah.
separate from their family, from their school, from the things they have to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a great thing. And I mean, I didn't talk much there about the movement and the fitness side of it, but that of course is an added benefit, and confidence. You know,
Yes.
it's a huge amount of confidence it brings as well as a lot of fun. Like, don't get me wrong, I
Yeah.
loved it. You know, some of the places I've danced, some of the things I've done, it's an amazing thing
It's
to have.
opportunities, isn't it? And just to
Yes.
see different parts of the world and meet different people, and and don't mean parts of the world necessarily from a huge travel point of view, but just different ways of the world, rather than the little bubble that we in school could create if we don't
Yeah.
create other opportunities. So yeah, I love that story. I really, really love. So it's really, so yes, they'll be going to the classes that they said they were to go and do the tester sessions of at the local dance school. And also because that does gymnastics, acro, ballet, tap, modern. So they don't have to stick to, it's not just taking them
Not just
to
one.
ballet for
Yeah.
talking sake. Okay, the second one is inspired by joy. So the book or mentor that kind of, it's just never left you and really changed something for you.
Yeah. This was actually quite a hard one for me because I love reading and I've always got a book in my hand and I've read so many really good books. But I think the one that sticks with me the most, that I still quote in my head or go back to, is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by the late Stephen Covey. It's such a good book. It was probably the first book that I read that I thought, wow, this is how I need to live my life. This is what I need to do. Just because I don't know if you've read the book or you're familiar with it, but it's very
Familiar with it, yeah.
yeah, it's very principle based. It's very practical. I'm not saying every single little thing in it is amazing, but the things that you take away from it, again, it's just always stayed with me
Mm-hmm.
from reading it. I don't know, all those probably 15, 20 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was one of those ones that is certainly one of like a batch of the kind of original personal development
Mm,
type books that, because I remember when my dad was getting into sales and all that type of thing and looking into those types of people and that type of way of talking and being effective and showing up in the world. And I think it's just really, really interesting. And what's really interesting about it is when you read the books that are 15, 20, 30 years ago, yes, there'll be bits in it you'll be a bit like, oh, that's a bit cheesy now, or maybe we've learned a bit better now. But the core elements
yeah.
are the same core elements that every single successful person that you're now watching on social media and
Hmm.
YouTube or on the telly, all those things are the same core elements that people are now talking about now in different ways and different because, as you say, we learn, things move on, but it's those same things don't change. Like being an efficient person, being a salesperson, being a marketeer, make friends and influence people, all those
Yeah.
core elements are the same,
Yeah.
and it's just about, to me, it's like the fundamentals of like being present, awareness, empathy. If you have all of those things, then you're going to, go really, really far. And I think it's really interesting when you go back to those.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with that. And I think it is interesting because sometimes I think you can dismiss the old books because of some, like the way they're written, the language. They're not always the easiest to get into, but actually the lessons are the same.
Hmm.
And sometimes even more, to me, it resonates more because you're just like, well, even in today's world, those principles still apply. And so that's worth more almost
Hmm.
than somebody talking very directly about today's world because, I think we just live in a crazy time at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to me, that's more meaningful because it stood the test of time
That's it.
almost.
It is a test of time. And
Yeah.
also, it keeps it human.
Mm.
Because it was a time before lots of technology and before, and I'm here for technology, I'm here for AI, I'm here for all the changes and everything else. But I think if we lose the humanness of it, of the humanity side of it, then I think we're going to be in big trouble.
Yes, I can't add anything to that. 100% agree with you. And actually, I think in a world, particularly thinking about accounting, that is going to be like the thing that makes the difference between
Yes.
businesses that survive and businesses that don't. Is that human touch, because that's all we've got. That's ultimately, or not that that's all we've got today, but that's all we will end up having.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, there's lots of industries that there will be jobs lost because
Mm,
efficiencies will increase. So you won't need 10 people doing what one person can do, etc., etc. And that's a whole nother podcast. But I do think there's always going to need to be that human element, even if it's the human element of keeping the AI human.
yes.
It's
Yeah.
just always going to need that element of it. And people still want the connection, and people still want, you saw the rise after COVID of people wanting to be in person events and still seeing people and still doing things like
Yeah.
that and still, wanting to go back out into the world. And people are wanting more experiences now than they are stuff and things in their house. So you see all of those things. So an AI can't do that.
No.
AI can't
No.
give that. I'm sure there's somebody out there that will tell me that a robot can, but in my eyes, a robot's never going to give me that connection that a human can. So it's just those things, and it's just thinking about and adapting and that. And that's with those books standing the test of time and the fundamentals still being there. And there's probably like the top 10 business books or the top 10 influential personal development books. There'll be ones in there that are exactly like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, because they're the
Yes.
ones that have influenced the new people who have now wrote books,
Yeah.
the Simon Sineks of the world and things like that. We all get our influences from somewhere. There's no new ideas.
No.
It's just done in a different way and spoke
Different
about
way.
in a different way and brought up to date. But it's those
Yeah.
fundamentals, it's that humanness of the old book. So everybody go and pick up an old personal development book and see what the corners, if you think that you're working with somebody who's got new ideas and I would give you my house that there's somebody that they've learnt those foundations from.
Yeah, I agree. There's not. People can say it in a different way, which
Yeah.
sometimes lands differently, and
Yep.
that's why it's great to have those options. But I agree with you. Fundamentally, it's come from somewhere, and sometimes people do it with such conviction that you actually do think it's a new thing,
Oh,
and it
completely.
really isn't.
Completely. That's why there's sales and marketing people, because they're the people that are good at putting that across. And obviously it's important that things are brought up to date, because there will be things in the books or the ideas or the frameworks that are dated and do need to be brought up to date. And it's good that people can bring that new way of looking at it. The fundamentals are still the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Sales psychology hasn't changed that much. Buyer behavior might, but sales psychology hasn't. So I think it's just really interesting to go back and read those books and get those foundations and then think about how you can adapt it into how it works for you, which is actually important about any of them, because it
It
has
is.
to work for you. You'll never do anything verbatim and come off well because it's not you.
No, I agree with that. And again, I think that's something that's part of the journey of being a business owner, is you do, particularly if you're, I'm very like, oh, I've got to play by the rules. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to do it that way. This is what someone's telling me to do. And I think it did take me a little bit of time to realize, actually, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I take the bits I need and I do it the way I want to do it, that works for me. And again, that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with, because they
Yes.
feel like they've got to do it exactly how they've been told how to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
if they don't, then it's a failure, which isn't true. It's about making it all work for you.
For you. It's
The
that
best way
it's
you
that
can.
adaptation, because the only difference between you and the next person is you're you.
Yeah.
So, okay, and the last one is the joy killer, the thing that you would like to see removed from the world.
So this is, I always say the news. I probably don't want it to see it removed from the world, but I find it extremely infuriating. To me, the news often only gives one side of a story.
Yes.
It doesn't give factual information. And maybe it's just because I'm an accountant and I like facts. I like dealing in that kind of thing. But I think it's actually really scary to think that most people, and I don't know what the numbers are, the statistics, but most people in the UK get their news or their media from one of, I think it's 3 different places when you look at the information. And if those information are not kind of like giving you factual information and are not like sharing both sides of a story or portraying it in a way that I feel like they sometimes portray it in a way that they're trying to pursue an agenda or a point of view to make people feel like that. I don't think that isn't how it should be in
No.
the UK today, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And there's 2 sides of it for me as well. So one, I quite often get banned in this house from watching the news because I am quite an empathetic person. So I take a lot of it on.
Yeah.
And then, like, Ash, my partner, can come home and he'll be like, "You've watched the news today, haven't you?" And I'm like, how do you know? Like, it's not usual for me to watch telly during the day, so how do you know that? And he's like, "That can just tell your whole aura, your whole moods, the way you've spoke about certain things. You've asked me if I've seen this and what do I think, and you're on edge." And it does put me completely on edge, and it's such a difficult thing, because you want to be up to date, you want to
Yeah.
know about current affairs, you want to care, but when it has that huge impact on your life, and then you're left feeling, well, I can't do anything,
Yeah.
and I'm not a politically active person, you're not going to find me marching on streets and things like that. But that doesn't mean I don't care. And that doesn't mean I don't want to try and make a difference. And I will donate to safe places that I think I can donate to. And I will sign the petitions and things that I see come up that I feel are relevant to how I feel and things like that. So you do feel like you're making a small difference, but it's just that information overload and not being able to get away from it. And then you have those guilty feelings of, well, how dare I want to get away from it when there's atrocities happening across the
Yeah.
world? The least I can do is open my eyes and see it. But it's such a difficult place to sit. then, as you say, where do you get, so when you are interested, where do you get your information from? Because it's so often one-sided and you're only getting one-sided. And weirdly, as somebody who has worked in sales and marketing for a long, long time, I'm very perceptible. So I can be heavily influenced. You know, the best person to sell to is a salesperson. So all of a sudden I'm then in that, and then I read another article and I'm like, that's not what I thought, or that's now given me another opinion. And it just, for your average person, I think it's very difficult for you to form your own opinion and how you feel about it, because everything feels very antagonistic, propaganda like. And even from people, and then you've got social media, which adds a whole new, because one thing me and my partner realised was our social media was telling us two very different things. Just because we follow different people, and not, again, not political people, just people on social media, but we realised that whatever rabbit holes we'd gone down at one point, there was very different opinions and feelings and different types of reporting of the news. And I just think it's a really, really difficult thing, you know, and I keep my children away from it. Obviously, they're too young, but I'm like, at what point and where do I go when they need
Mm.
to start having that information?
It is a bit like you just said. I struggle with that a little bit sometimes, and that's why I do tend to stay away from it, because I think it does affect me, and ultimately I can't do anything about those things, or I don't feel like I can. What can I do? I still think even with some of those things, the journalists, the people that are doing the reporting, they're not reporting the whole story, that they're just reporting a bit of it. And I find that incredibly frustrating, because you want to go a bit deeper and you want to understand it more, but you can't find the kind of facts to make those decisions up. And I don't know why there's a whole industry where it doesn't, how that can be got away with when that's what's just being put out to the whole world. I find that really difficult to come to terms with. And then there's the side of it where I think, they kind of more do sort of more about things perhaps that are going to affect people in the UK, and they're trying to, you know, touch on things that are affecting us day to day as people that live here. And then like they'll pull like a random, and that's no disrespect to the person, but they'll pull like a
Yes.
random person that represents, yes, an element of the UK, but it will be one element when, we're a range of this, my hands go like this.
Yeah.
We're a range of people, and then they bring that on, and then the whole story is around that one kind of
Opinion.
individual. Yeah. And it's like, but that's not a fact. It's not even about being factual, because it's not about facts. It's whatever they're reporting will affect people in different ways, and they're just giving one side of how, it's not even one side. It's like a slither of how it might affect that particular type of person. And I just think they could do so much. They could do so much more than that. They could actually really help. And then you get the ones which I know is kind of going down a different avenue, but you get like the tabloid ones where they can just blatantly
Lie.
just lie. And, you see it like with social media, you'll see, celebrities put on social media, they've reported this is not true. This is actually what happened. And you're like, well, how can like a mainstream, probably the highest selling newspaper in the UK get away with that? I don't get it. And we
That's it,
just
and it's
like,
all the political affiliations. If you read this paper,
yeah,
then you must vote for that person, and if you read this paper, you must vote. And it's like, where is just the freedom of the press?
yeah,
You know, where is
yeah,
that? Why the press was started in the first place? Where was that? You know, and that idea of the journalists who go out to find the true stories, and it's a very romanticised view of it. I get that. But
yeah.
there has to be an element, there has to be somebody that's looking for the truth, whereas those people tend
Yeah.
to be, you don't hear about them again, unfortunately.
No, that's it. And then the way they can, when something bad has happened, and then, we've seen it lots. I could give lots of examples, but, where they hook onto somebody who's been accused of something, and that person hasn't even done it in the end, but they've
Mhm.
absolutely ruined their life, pulled everything up from when they were like, 16 years old, doing this, that, and the other. And you're like, well, the teenagers, they haven't actually done anything wrong. And you've just spent the past 3 months absolutely slating them. Their life will never be the same again. We
Mhm.
talk about a world of, mental health and being kind to people, and they are the worst people for doing it.
And I think
Like,
it's
how
that
are they
thing,
allowed to do it?
even when it's like you say, it's that, you know, making somebody the enemy, like goading somebody, making their lives misery. But even the fact of, I cannot stand when it's even like the sporting achievements.
Mm.
And it's like, it was when, was it the Lionesses? And all this day, they'd like wrote them off. It was one of the, I think it was going up to the semi-final or something like that. And they wrote them off all day. They're all like, oh, they didn't play that well in the last game. And, oh, so they're probably not going to make it through tonight. And is that the end? Is our Lionesses this? And it was so negative all afternoon.
Mm.
It was like, you're literally putting them in the bin before they've even started. This is a team that you're meant to be getting behind as a nation. Obviously, I'm Scottish, not English, but I was still behind the Lionesses for lots of reasons.
Mhm.
You're meant to be getting behind them as a nation, but you're actually annihilating them before they even get on the pitch. Then the Lionesses pull it off that night, and as soon as the final whistle went, they were the best thing since sliced bread again. And they
Yeah.
were amazing, and they were the Lionesses, and look how they roared, and look how they come out, and they can come over. Everything's like, 4 hours ago, yous were done. Yous were ready. And I just think, why does our own press, why does the British press have that British mentality that needs to get lost, that we don't shout about when we're good, that, we're not proud of ourselves, that we're not, and I just, we're proud in the aftermath. We're not proud
Yes.
on the way up, and the press continue. So even when you're not talking about the really bad sides of the press that we've already
Mm.
mentioned, but this thing of like, we can't even have joy.
Yeah. No.
We can't even have the good. We can't even report on the good stuff
No.
well enough.
No.
You know,
It's I don't know. It totally baffles me, and again, I just cannot. I have to stay away from it because it either upsets me or it makes me angry, or I just like become exasperated that like how can it be?
no, it's
Um,
that. It's like there's lots of broken systems in this country at the moment, but that
mm,
is one, and that seems one that is just like, stop ruling it for profit and politics and start ruling it for a country that informs. But it just feels a very long way away that
yeah,
might actually
no,
happen. That might actually.
yeah.
Well, that was a very somber way to finish what was a really uplifting
It wasn't.
conversation to that point. But it's one joy killer that I've actually not had, and some of the joy killers have been serious. It's really funny. It can
Mm,
be like, joy killers can go from something serious like we've just spoke about, and for somebody else it might be baked beans.
yes.
It's so funny with the way people answer. But that was a really interesting one because, as I say, there is times that I'm not allowed, I'm banned if I'm caught
Mm.
reading the news. And even if I'm scrolling too much, he's like, right, off. You're not doing work now. This isn't business time anymore. You just need to stop that scrolling. 'Cause he says, I can see the war. I can see it happening. And it affects everybody around me because it affects my mood and my mental state. And I think we have to kind of protect ourselves and choose where we're getting our information from
Yeah, I
as
agree.
best as best
As
as we
best we
can.
can.
As best as we can. So if people do want to know more about you, where do they come? Where do they find you?
So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Hayley Baxter, or I am also on Instagram at the Off Grid Accountant. And my business, Cobra Accounting, has pages on all of the social media.
Lovely. All the links will be in the show notes. Now, I don't let anybody go without asking them a final question. And that is, what joy legacy do you want to leave behind?
Gosh, what joy legacy would I? That's a question, isn't it? I think the joy legacy that I would love to leave behind would be that business is fun and that numbers as part of that business journey can really help you and shouldn't be something that to be afraid of. If I can just touch 100 business owners' lives and take that away from them, then I will be happy with that.
I love that. There's magic in the numbers. I
There is.
promise. I
There is.
completely agree with you that, and I'm the furthest thing from an accountant there can be. Trust me, I need all the help from my accountant as I can possibly get. But the magic is truly in the numbers, and I love your approach. So I really think everyone should go and find out more, because your approach to accountancy sounds right up my street
Thank you
completely,
very
and
much.
it can be the magic. Thank you so much for joining me today, Hayley. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. And that's it for today's conversation with Hayley. I hope you found it as insightful as I did. I think you can tell how much I enjoyed the conversation, and even though we started the episode as strangers, I truly felt like I was having a conversation with a friend. As always, here are my 3 takeaways from the episode. Number 1, knowing yourself is the foundation of everything. I commented on it a lot in the podcast, and Hayley's journey story is a reminder that building the right business starts with understanding who you are and what you value. And I was a little bit blown away by how much Hayley understood herself from what seems a very young age and throughout her life, and the decisions she was able to make. Number 2, that accountants are more than number crunchers, and I think I used the word a little bit magic. They can be true partners for small businesses, guiding not just finances, but the human side of growth and optimizing your business on every levels. And in number 3, the automation isn't everything. In a world of AI and systems, people still crave connection, empathy, and a human voice. And that when things get automated in the accountancy world, in the business world, in the processes world, that there is still going to be that human connection that is needed in all facets of business. A huge thank you to Hayley for sharing her story and her perspectives. If you love this episode, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. It really does make the biggest difference of new people finding the podcast. And if you're ready to find your people, carry on these conversations, and put joy at the heart of your business, come and join us inside the Joy Work Club, the community. It's free, and all the details are waiting for you in the show notes. Until next time, keep chasing joy, keep taking bold action, and remember, the work may be messy, but it can always be joyful.